Hey, if you click on this video, chances are you want to improve your French, but without going through boring grammar drills or textbook exercises, right? You want your learning to be fun and engaging, and that's exactly what video games can offer. Welcome to the channel. I'm Marvin, also known as Darv. I'm a certified French teacher, a lifelong gamer, and I've reached C1 level in 3 different languages with the help of video games along the way. Today, my mission is to keep exploring what games can offer us as language learners and share it with you. So in this video, we are going to cover 2 big ideas. First, how video games help you improve your core language skills, so reading, listening, speaking, and writing. Then we look at the game mechanics that keep you motivated and why games are perfect for slow and deep learning. Let's dive in. Alright, let's start with the core skills, and first up, reading. Start by stating the obvious. Video games give you a ton of reading input. Reading is everywhere, in quests, missions, dialogues, menus. If you are paying attention, you have tons of opportunities to internalize new words and expressions. But what makes reading in games special compared to books is this. The experience is customizable. You choose how much you want to read. If you are tired, you can stick to the basics, follow the main quest, skip optional text. But if you are in the mood to go deeper, you can read side quests, talk to every NPC, or dig into lore items. For example, I'm currently playing Detroit Become Human in Portuguese to improve my own language skills. In the game, you can find magazines and newspapers laying around. They're totally optional. They don't change the game's outcome, they just give some extra world building, like politic or economic background info. But I love those moments. I can slow down, take my time to read, and even practice pronunciation out loud. Sure, there is no audio support with those texts, which is a bit of a shame, but it's still a great reading activity. And if I'm not in the mood, I can just skip it and move on with the story. No pressure. Just like with reading, customization also applies to listening. In many games, you can choose both the audio language and the subtitles. Most of the time, I recommend going full French. French audio, French subtitles. That's usually the best combo if you already feel comfortable enough to push your skills further. But let's be real, sometimes having 2 languages on screen can be helpful, especially if you are a beginner. I remember when I started learning English as a teenager, I was playing Final Fantasy X. The game was in French, but the audio was only available in English. And that setup turned out to be a game changer. I was listening to English while reading the French translation, and it helped me make some unforgettable connections. For example, there is this scene where Yuna is speaking to the leaders of the Ronso tribe in Mount Gagazet, and she says, "I won't let you down." At first, I thought it had to be something literal, like "I won't let you fall," literally. But then I saw the French translation, the French subtitles. "Je ne te décevrai pas," I won't disappoint you. That was the moment I learned what "let someone down" really meant. And it stuck with me forever. That kind of moment is gold. So yes, even if you go with English audio and French subtitles, or the other way, you can still learn a lot. That said, I'll always prefer French because it keeps you fully immersed, no switching between languages, and no translating in your head. Just input in French, directly connected to meaning. Another great benefit of listening in games is a variety of voices and intonations. If you always listen to the same podcast, for example, you get used to one voice. But in games, you hear different characters, emotions, speech styles, even if they don't all have strong accents. That's something you also have in movies or series or anything, but it's also here present for video games. It's a great way to train your ear and get used to natural speech. Now let's talk about writing and speaking. The truth is, most games don't have mechanics that let you write or speak directly to the game. You're not typing full sentences or talking to characters with your own voice. So at first glance, it might seem like video games don't really help you with production skills, but actually, they do. It may sound counterintuitive, but games can boost your writing and speaking in indirect but powerful ways. Here's what I learned from both experience and research. Video games offer multimodal learning. That means your brain processes input through multiple channels at once: sound, image, action, and text. Let's compare. When you listen to a podcast, you only get the audio. Same with a song. Add a music video, now you have audio plus visuals. But video games go further. You're not just watching or listening, you're actively interacting. You see a word, you hear a sound, and then you do something. That connection between language and action creates deeper pathways in your brain. It's like you're building a 3D map of meaning. And when it's time to speak or write, those connections help you record sentence structures more naturally. Of course, just playing games isn't enough to improve your speaking or writing on its own. You still need to find ways to practice actively through conversation, writing exercises. But games can give you a boost. They prepare your brain to build sentences and help you internalize grammar and vocabulary in context, which makes speaking and writing feel a lot easier when you do practice. And beyond all the language skills that we talked about, I want to highlight another important benefit. Something a bit different, but still super valuable: cultural knowledge. Video games are also a great way to learn about history, mythology, and real-world references. For example, Assassin's Creed Unity takes place in Paris during the French Revolution. Sure, there are a few inaccuracies, but it's based on real historical facts, and you even encounter real characters from that time period. Another great example is Civilization. In the game, you can explore the Civipedia, basically an in-game encyclopedia packed with information. It gives you context about wonders of the world, great leaders, and other major historical and cultural elements. And I'll be honest, most of what I know about Greek mythology comes from games like God of War and Age of Mythology. I play the campaign again and again, and that's how I learned the stories of Icarus, the Minotaur, and so many others. These stories stuck with me because I didn't just read them, I played through them. So yeah, video games are just entertainment. They can also be a fun and immersive way to explore culture, history, and mythology. And that adds huge value to your language journey. Now that we've covered all the language skills you can sharpen with video games, let's take a closer look at the game mechanics, the inner workings of games that help you stay motivated in the long run. One key idea to understand is that video games promote something we could call goal-oriented learning, as opposed to language-oriented learning. Let me explain. In a traditional classroom, when you learn something like the passé composé, you're often asked to complete exercises just to practice that specific structure. You're learning the language for the sake of the language. Ideally, a good teacher will make this learning task-oriented, meaning you use the grammar to complete a meaningful task. But in video games, it's not about grammar, and not exactly about a task. It's about goals. And language becomes a tool to help you reach those goals. You don't read a dialogue to learn French. You read it because it helps you know where to go next, how to solve a quest, how to interact with the world. You're not thinking, I need to practice this tense. You're thinking, I want to defeat this boss, solve this puzzle, or explore this area. For example, earlier today, I was playing Dragon Quest XI in Spanish, and I was a bit lost. I'm not sure where to go next. So I spoke to a random NPC, and he told me to go on the road on the southeast, somewhere around. I had to focus carefully on his message. It took me a minute to process what he meant. First I went by boat, then I understood it was by foot, but once I did, I found the correct path and could continue the story. That's exactly what I mean by goal-oriented learning. The language wasn't the end goal. It was a means to progress in the game. That subtle shift changes everything. You're not studying the language, you're using it in a real, meaningful way. and that keeps your brain way more engaged. Another reason video games are so effective for learning is because of their step-by-step progression. Games are built around learning cycles, and they give you the time and space to learn by doing. So let me break that down. When you start a new game, you begin with almost nothing. You go through a tutorial when you learn the basics: how to move, how to fight, how to interact. Maybe you start with just a sword and shield. Once you've mastered those, the game gives you a bow. Later, you unlock more advanced abilities, but only after you had time to understand the tools you already have. That's what we call learning cycles. The game teaches you something, lets you practice it, and then builds on it. And if you skip that cycle, it's a disaster. Have you ever jumped into a friend's endgame save file while everything is unlocked, every boss is available, and you have no idea what you're doing? It's a nightmare. I remember trying that once in Horizon. I played a friend's save near the end of the game, and honestly, I didn't enjoy it. I was overwhelmed, confused, and frustrated. But then, I started the game from the beginning, at my own pace, learning step by step. I had a completely different experience. The gradual progression is what deep learning looks like. You're given just enough new information to keep things interesting, but never so much that it becomes overwhelming. You get time to process each new ability, each concept, before moving on. And that's how video games support slow, meaningful, and doable learning, piece by piece, layer by layer, until you master the whole system. And finally, let's talk about trial and error, because this is one of the most powerful things video games bring to language learning. As we've said, games promote learning by doing, and that learning is built on a trial and error system. You try something, the game gives you instant feedback, and based on that, you know whether your action was correct or not. Maybe the game refuses your action, maybe your character dies, maybe the game tells you you can't go this way. Whatever happens, you get a clear signal and you adjust. This constant loop of trying, failing, and improving is baked into game design. And here's the key point. In games, failing is expected. That simple fact removes a lot of stress and guilt. In class, students often apologize for making mistakes, but in a game, you don't apologize for dying. You just try again. Have you ever played a whole game without dying once? Maybe on easy mode, but if you're playing normal or hard, chances are you fail. And that's fine, it's part of the fun. Let me give you a recent example. I was playing Detroit Become Human in Portuguese. Again, I had to investigate a crime scene in a house, collect clues, recreate what happened, identify the weapon and who attacked whom. But honestly, I was confused. I wasn't sure which room it happened in, who hit whom, or what weapon was used. At the end of the mission, I had to give a report to my superior. The game gave me 3 or 4 options for each question, and yeah, I totally failed. But the game didn't punish me harshly, it just moved on. It told me, you got it wrong, that's it. You could replay the chapter if you want, or just keep going. Fun fact, I played the mission again for the sake of this video, and this time I got it right. But well, in any case, no worries. That's what makes trial and error so powerful. It lets you learn without fear. You're not scared of making mistakes, because in a game, they're part of the journey. So in conclusion, we've seen just how much video games can boost your language learning. From sharpening your reading, listening, speaking, and writing skills, to developing cultural knowledge, and even helping you stay motivated long term. That's why I believe games are a great tool to include in your daily routine, to learn a language. Some people learn with series or musics, and for you, maybe it could be video games. Picture this. You're tired after a long day, you want to relax. Instead of having to choose between studying French or playing a game, you can actually do both at the same time. That's what I do, personally. Most evenings from 9 to 11 p.m. I'm on my PlayStation playing a game in another language, Portuguese, Spanish, English, and I keep up with my languages that way. A little bit every day. So yeah, it's really about how you want to implement it in your life. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like, subscribe or share it with a gamer friend who are also learning languages. You can also catch me on Twitch every Tuesday and Thursday from 7 to 9 p.m. French time. We play narrative games in French and I explain words and expressions as we go. I leave links to my blog and Twitch in the description below, where you also find tips and articles about language learning through gaming. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever used video games to learn a language? Drop a comment, I'd be really happy to hear your experiences. See you next time!